Oh, the TV.
We got one more minute. Zella's calling in. It's like Jeopardy.
I have 1800.
It's 6 o'clock.
We're ready? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Tonight is the first of 5 budget hearings. We try to separate them into logical increments. Tonight is public safety. We'll be looking at the volunteer fire department, the Norwich Fire Department, emergency management, and then police. Tonight, we're going to start with East Great Plain. That's on page 82 of is the budget. Each of these budgets, we try to increase them slightly. This one's up about 6 or 7%. Trying to fulfill the key numbers that are close to the request. Now, obviously, we didn't do all the requests, and but the main ones that we could analyze, we have completed. So, with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well during this pandemic and this nasty virus that's going on. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Is there anything in the budget that was not put in that you feel is still needed?
No, not at this time. Like I said, understanding with everything going on, some things had to be cut, and what was nice is I spoke to the city manager and Josh prior, and they helped me out with some of the capital stuff where we needed to get upgraded to get some fire gear into the firehouse and to some of our newer members. So if that stays the way I hope it does, we should be good for this coming year.
How are you set for PPE?
Right now we're pretty good. The good thing is American.
Hi, it's Ella.
Hi, Ella.
Hi, Ella.
We just started.
American Ambulance, with the assistance, I'm assuming from the state or whatever, last week has issued out PPE, so that helped us bring our numbers up of PPE, which is a good thing, because obviously this day and age right now, there's a serious shortage. Prior to that, like everybody, I'm sure, I was online day in and day out just trying to find masks and stuff for our members. We got a small quantity, but now we've got a little bit bigger quantity, and I just placed an order with Shipment Fire Department last week for more masks that they're supposed to be getting here shortly. At least that's what they tell me.
Members, questions? Stacy Gould.
Thank you for being here, Chief Milton.
Very welcome.
And this may be a question more for the city manager. Number one, do you have any idea, are you keeping track of how much your department has expended in COVID-19 related supplies?
Off the top of my head, no, but I do have the necessary receipts to hold. I've made copies of them, so I don't have that on me personally, but I do have them keeping track of that as well.
Okay, and how will we be reimbursing the fire departments or police department for these unexpected expenses?
We've set up a special line items for anything related to the virus expenditures. In fact, less is more, so we have quite a list. So everything gets coded with that special number, which then we can pick up later. The volunteer fire departments will receive 75% of whatever we get. We have to determine if they can afford the other 25, if that's going to come from the general fund, or it probably has to, depending on what the number is. But they would receive, at a minimum, the 75% that we get would be passed back to to each volunteer fire department to make them whole.
Okay.
So, actually, for, just today, Chief Milton's especially good at, like, providing enough detail with, when he's using his purchase card to buy cleaning supplies. So I could see in his purchase card transactions that this one said COVID-19, so I just took that and I took it out of Chief Milton's budget and put it into the FEMA set of accounts that we set up, so that it would be aggregated there, and we can just, scan receipts and upload them to FEMA's system when the time comes.
Okay, because, the fire department's budgets may not be able to absorb the total cost of the supplies that they are buying.
At some point, depending on how long this goes and what we're spending, we may make a special appropriation that everybody could work off of. That's another way to do it, rather than reimburse later. In other words, in advance on expenditures.
On your expected FEMA
Right.
payback?
Right. We may have to do that anyway, a special appropriation from fund balance, depending on how much we have to spend and how long we have to spend the money. But the key is good documentation, and with that, we're confident we'll get the 75 back.
Excellent.
Alderman
you.
Wilson?
My first question is, you've pretty much said it, but you're okay with the overall proposed budget for your department?
Yes, I am.
My second question is, kind of piggybacking from the conversation with supplies, and kind of like the unknown going into this next year. Do you think the proposed amount for supplies will be something that you are kind of worried about going into next year with this still going on?
Right now, a little bit, because obviously, as everyone heard, we're in a high now. That's supposed to go down to a low and then ramp back up come fall, beginning of winter next year, if you will. Hopefully, with some of the orders that I've got coming in, I'm hoping that's going to work and keep us level and staffed up. And unless the city manager is able to pull off what he just said about doing a big bulk purchase with everything, that'll work as well. But right now, not so much. I'm more concerned as of right now. And then hopefully, when this dies down, not just myself, but all the departments and the vendors and suppliers will hopefully get their stock back up and have to restock. And hopefully by then they'll have something, and maybe it won't be as severe come fall, winter time.
Okay. The last thing I have is, with purchasing now, are you seeing an increase in unit price for certain supplies?
It appears to be a little bit.
Okay.
Nothing you're going to do about that, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
It's wrong, as we all know. But yeah, a little bit. Nothing too drastic since I've purchased anything. But like I said, I do have a purchase coming up from shipments of a couple hundred masks. And looking at the prices, like, okay, well, that's to me a little bit up, but I could be wrong as well. But I haven't seen anything too drastic, anything that we've specifically purchased right now.
All right. Thank you again for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Other members?
No questions.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Stay safe there, Milt. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief. Stay safe.
What we're doing is we're holding the
They're
departments
staging
in
them?
separate room, so we
Staging.
have a little lag between the,
So Miss America doesn't hear the question?
that's right, that's right. They're in the green room having hors d'oeuvres and champagne.
I want to go in the green room.
The next budget is
Motion that we move to the green room. That's it.
on page 84. It's Laurel Hill.
Yeah, Josh, it's just a reception issue. That's all it is. It's a reception issue, that's all. I got connected, but it's garbage. If I hadn't forgotten my phone, it wouldn't be an issue.
Mike, this one's opened already. Yeah. We're trying to do all the protocol. There you are. Aaron, keep the microphone pretty close to you. Okay, this is Laurel Hill. Their budget request was about $91,000. We reduced it to about $78,000, trying to contain most of the key elements in their budget, and I'll defer to the chief for any comments, and we'll take questions after that.
Chief, go ahead.
Comments for me? The only comment I have to make is when this budget was put together, the uncertainty of what's currently going on was not foreseen. We don't know how long this current pandemic is going to last, and how long we're going to be in meetings like this. I don't know if Chief Milton brought it up, but the cost of things that we are currently buying is astronomical compared to what it was 3 or 4 months ago.
That's a little different than,
So I know we're keeping track of things. I know I've got an email from Josh about putting COVID on all of our purchases, but this budget was not presented with the anticipation of having to maybe resupply for another go come October if it calls for it. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. We don't know what the next 6 months is going to be. We don't know what the next month, 2, 3, 4 months is going to be. So, I mean, the budget as it stands right now, given no unnecessary foreseeable problems, I mean, we can live with what we got, but, you know, going forward, we just don't know what it looks like. So, I just wanted everyone to keep that in mind.
let me, if I may, Mayor, we're going to get this recurring theme with all
Right,
the
yes.
volunteer fire departments. So I'll repeat it one more time. Everything that they're spending is reimbursed at 75%. Anything they're putting out, they're advancing. We're also going to do, at some point, a special appropriation, which all departments can tap into, because we realize that there's nothing in the budget for this situation. So we'll be making the volunteer fire departments whole, because we know they have a budget for that.
Aaron, did you participate in the distribution at American Ambulance Friday?
The distribution by it, you mean by
At
the
a-
state of Connecticut at American Ambulance?
Yes, through them, yeah.
Yes, we did.
Okay,
There's been 2 of them that I've participated in.
yep. So you're set for now, as far as stuff like the mask and,
We're set with the mask that you currently have, which is the surgical mask.
yeah,
The N95s we need for higher advanced things, CPR and those kind of things. We have a low supply. We have currently 19.
okay,
And getting those,
very difficult.
very difficult unless you want to spend a lot of money for them.
Yeah,
And they are back ordered 3 to, some places are telling me 6 weeks.
yeah. Thank you. Members, questions? Yes, Alderman Wilson.
So with the budget as it stands now, are you okay with the budget as it's proposed for your department right now?
The proposed 78,445?
Yes.
Yeah.
My next question is kind of piggybacking off of the conversation or comments on supplies. Do you feel that in the budget right now, that amount will be sufficient enough going into the next fiscal year?
It's a tough question to answer,
Okay.
given there is no certainty. If you listen to the governor's report this morning, this pandemic could go as far as June, this one could go as far as end of June and get worse, meaning I need more supplies.
Sure.
No guarantee the state's gonna get them for me, I may have to go out and buy them. And then if they're saying that there might be another one come October, November timeframe, I'm gonna need more supplies for that too, but I don't know what that looks like.
Sure.
So, as it stands right now, if nothing else changed over the course of the next 6 months to a year, then yeah, the way it currently stands is we can work with whatever we're given. But unforeseen things I can't predict.
Thank you for all that you do.
Other members? Alderman Gould?
Chief Westervelt, thank you for being here tonight. How's your membership's morale
The
in,
morale of
in light of COVID-19 and all of the restrictions that it's put on your membership?
Good. I mean, I've been trying to keep them giving them as much information as I possibly can. I know I've put out policies. I've, tried to reassure them. We'll do everything we can to protect them. I do have members, as I'm sure everyone else does, who are in the high risk, who are worried about this kind of stuff and fear what happens if they get it. I've tried to help them the best I can. But I think overall, the morale is good. As long as we let them know what's going on and keep them informed, I think we'll be okay, as long as we have gear to protect them.
And do you have adequate supplies to clean your station and your apparatus?
Clean the station? Yes. We got a supply just before this actually came out of bleach. It's a Clorox bleach cleaner. So I have quite a bit of that. It cleans the station. Cleaning equipment is a little different. Some of the stuff you can't just spray down. It's electronic. So we need wipes. Wipes are in short supply. So, again, however long this pans out is how well we'll do with my current stock.
And has your department had any exposure to any positive COVID-19 patients?
Again, that's another tough one to answer, because unless they get tested, we're not told. And there are people who are going to the hospital who are not getting tested. So we don't know. The answer to that is maybe. I don't have a better answer for you. We have had some people who have shown the signs, but to my knowledge, I have not been told that they are positive. So I just don't know.
Okay.
Is there a procedure in place where you would have been told if
So
someone tests
the-
positive?
Yes, so the procedure, as it stands right now, if American Ambulance comes to our district and gets a patient and goes to the hospital and they're test positive, it goes through their chain. So through Bacchus Hospital.
So they
it
trace
goes-
back to the contact?
It goes to
and-
the unit coordinator, it goes to the EMS coordinator, Jeff Way.
Yep.
Who then reaches out to the American Ambulance and the fire department as needed to let them know that someone did come back positive.
Contact trace stuff, in other words.
Yep, so every call we go to who's positive or shows the signs of being potentially positive, we write down every crew member that was on there and we limit access. So only maybe one person goes in to see what's going on and then we go from there.
Thank you.
Other members?
May I add,
Oh.
since I think we're going to get into the coronavirus a little bit, I haven't had a chance to have a chiefs meeting since we've done this, but we will be trying to purchase and block and not put it on the onus of each volunteer fire department. Normally, that's what they do. They do their own purchasing. In this case, that may not work. It may have to be citywide purchase and then divided up among the departments based on use. We're probably going to have to do that at some point because to work with the small quantities and things, it may not work well with when you're ordering some of the PPEs and items like that.
One quick,
Go
how
ahead.
many EMTs do you have? Are you volunteers?
So I just, well, we
I see
don't go by
that-
just EMTs, we go by, we have EMRs too.
Okay.
We just submitted our application, I want to say it was 17
Total
total,
of both?
EMT, EMR.
Okay.
Yeah, that respond to medical calls.
All right, thank you.
Other members? Yeah, Alderman DeLucia.
Chiefs, so you made a comment earlier about the cost of the PPE being astronomical, I think was the word. Is that, and this was a question that was asked Chief Milton by Alderman Wilson, is it the unit price that you're getting hit, or is it consumption? Because the consumption we can understand, you know, you're using it, but
So, just an example, a N95, let's say, cost $1 about 4 months ago.
yeah.
They're upwards in the area of $6 now. So they've gone up 600%. For the same mask, nothing changed.
Right.
So you buy 100 before, you're paying $100. Now you're paying 6. And that's just for masks.
Yeah, and that's really the root of the question, because certainly, you know, that's something that we can question, so, you know.
And
But,
that's if you can find it.
well, obviously, right? But,
It's like Lysol.
so I'm looking at page 84 of the budget, and it says in one of your line items, not a budgetary one, but informational, firefighters with state of Connecticut certifications, and you gave us percentages, and some of the departments gave us percentages, and some actually gave persons, you know, people. So when it says firefighters with state of Connecticut certifications, and you say 97%, that's 97% of your total membership?
Yep.
What number is that?
So firefighters with state of Connecticut certifications, that could be EMTs, who are just EMTs, not firefighters, EMRs, so 97%, we have 30, I believe, 7 members. So I think we just got a couple new people who I can't really count in there, but we're probably in the area of 30, 31 members who have EMT, EMR, or firefighter. Some of them have both, but
Makes
they
per-
have a certification in something.
Great. And then on your capital budget, and I'm not questioning this, I'm just curious. You have a line item for training room improvements. What are you planning to do with your training room? I'm interested to, what's
So
your
the training
vision
room is
for,
also the hall.
right,
So we do both things in there.
yep,
The tables and chairs, I've had to throw out 3 tables in the last 2 months because they were actually donated to us back in 1999. They are literally rotting off the frame. The chairs are not much better. We've sat in them. We've thrown out about 40 chairs in the last year alone due to people falling through. They were also given to us back in 1999.
yep.
So they've had their life. So most of it is going to be spent on tables, chairs, and then the rest is going to be spent on electronics. That TV we have mounted on the wall is a plasma television. Plasma. They don't even.
Also 1999.
Yeah. There's actually lines through it because we've used it so much. So a new television, that kind of stuff. New whiteboards. That's kind of where that money's being spent.
Right, and that's exactly what I was getting at, is that it's not to renovate the space, but to really just upgrade the material so that you do your training more effectively, hold meetings more effectively, so. Yeah.
The tables were, ideally, we're probably going to do smaller tables so we can fit more people.
Yeah,
so we can hold more state of Connecticut classes, they require X amount of seating capacity, which we currently don't.
Okay.
We can do it, we just need some more.
Perfect, thank you.
Other members?
One other question.
Go ahead, Alderman Gould.
Last question. Your department is using Enfers for emergency reporting?
We're using emergency reporting for Enfers,
I'm sorry.
other way around, but yes, we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members? We're all set, Chief, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next department is Ockham Fire Department. Yeah. Chief, put the mic pretty close to your face because it doesn't pick up as well as the other. Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, Chief.
Hi, Chief.
Chief?
This is Ockham Fire Department, second year for the chief. He's got his feet wet now in the budget after 2 years, and he's done an excellent job on the budget. We made a decision to increase his budget around 10%. It probably was under budgeted some previous years, so we increased it about 10% this year. I'll defer to the chief for any other comments, and we'll take questions.
It's obvious, last year we put in, well, not myself, but the previous chief put in 125,000, we were awarded 81,000. This year, myself and my deputy chief, we went over the numbers, and we figured 101,000 is practical for the fire department. And I see we were awarded 87, which is good for me. I can work with this, not a problem. The only thing I lack is we had to transfer funds from training this year because we had an outstanding number of people who wanted to go to school. I already have 7 that want to go to school at the cost of $1,400 per student. So that's going to eat that budget up quite well. Well, I worked with Josh this year, and we kept moving funds around to make it work. And I'm sure I can do the same thing with the same amount of money. We went up on the uniforms. I know we've got new members and we don't have any uniforms for them. So that's an item that, we can work with it. We changed vendors from Stillman uniforms to Capital uniforms. Capital uniform has given us a cheaper rate on the same uniforms that Stillman supplies. So I've been shopping around a lot, trying to cut corners. And basically, that's it in a nutshell.
Carol, how, your membership's up?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we handed out 5 applications this past weekend.
What would that bring you to in total?
It would bring us up to almost 40 members.
Okay, thank you. Members have questions. Alderman Nash.
I only have one question. I've noticed in the other budgets, the physicals, you and Yantic seem to be the only ones given less money for physicals. Is there a reason why all the other departments were not cut in their physicals and why yours was deducted almost $5,000 from it?
Well, like we say, we had $3,500 to do physicals. Donna is gonna do just the basic physical now. She's not gonna do the extra where we have to send other people to do other things. That's gonna be on their insurance.
So can you get the physicals done with the 7,000 proposed? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I can.
Members, Alderman Gould.
Good evening, Chief Spaulding. Thank you for being here. The city manager, you haven't heard it yet, or maybe you do know, about reimbursing for any COVID-19 supplies. You understand that you'll be tracking those supplies and that we will be reimbursing the departments for those supplies to make your budget whole. So that's some good news. Do you have any idea how much money you may have expended for COVID-19 supplies to date?
I would say basically close to $250 so far.
Okay, and do you have adequate supplies to clean your station and your apparatus? And do you have adequate PPE?
We have a mask problem that we are straightening out right now. Everybody is on board with it, so, and we've changed our protocols as far as medical response, so that nobody's using these masks over and over again, so. And, we're doing pretty good so far.
Okay. And how is the morale at the department?
It's good. What we've done is, social distancing, we actually closed our department. We're no longer doing any functions, any drills. It's just calls only. And it seems to be working out all right. Some of our people are taking online training, and that seems to be keeping people occupied. So,
Have you had, anyone in your department have any exposure to any positive COVID-19 patients?
no, we had one that we found out after the fact, but we never responded to it. It was 252 Old Canterbury Turnpike, Lot 43.
Okay.
So,
And final question, are you using ENFRS for emergency reporting?
yes, we are.
Thank you.
Yep, my deputy chief, he's right on top of that.
Yes, Alderman Wilson.
So just kind of in a nutshell, first, thank you for all that you do as a chief and leading your department. The budget as proposed, it's something, again, that you can live with and maintain and reach the goals set by your department?
Yes,
Okay,
without a doubt.
thank you. That's the only question I have.
Other members?
I'm good. He covered it.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Chief.
Be safe.
Next department is Taft-Bill. Taftville Fire Department is a very busy department. We try to reflect the line items to reflect the demand on the expenses. We had to reduce in a few areas, but it's our opinion that that the budget is workable. I'll defer to the chief for any comments, and then we can take questions.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear me well. Thank you guys for coming out for this type of, especially during this type of situation. It's a new world that we live in. As the city manager said, the Taft Fire Department responded to roughly 803 calls last year. They were anything from structure fires to the standard EMS calls and several water rescue calls. The department remains active in the community, as we always have, as far as supporting several local organizations, as well as several civic organizations here, such as the Juvenile Review Board and things like that. We try to be fiscally prudent when we put our budget together, as we do every year, and basically ask for the bare necessities. Probably about 12 years ago when I took over, we put in, we formatted pretty much a strategic plan for the department as far as getting everything back online, so that we could budget different projects over multiple years, such as the roof replacement, the painting of the interior of the building, things along those lines. It's a little easier not to crack if we can budget so much money for a year instead of saying, we need all of this to do it at once, unless it's in dire need. It's an easy way to look at it is if I had to put a roof on my house, I could drain my entire budget or have thought forward and look forward to a few years and be able to, accommodate things that way. That said, I guess, you guys have questions? Unless you got anything.
Members? Alderman Bencourt.
Just a few things. Partly out of curiosity and, self-preservation, how many active members do you have right now?
Taft Fire Department, the Taft Fire Department right now, prior to the pandemic, has 43 active members. Due to several members being in the Navy, their command has said that they are unable to respond, and we're holding probably with about 35.
Okay. Of those, I was just to say, of those, how many of those have some kind of advanced training, either EMR, EMT, firefighter 1 or 2?
Other than our probationary members, every member of the Taft Fire Department is a state certified firefighter 1 at a minimum.
Very good. Outstanding.
And the only reason why some of the, even with our juniors have a special night that's trained just for them. They're 16 to 18. Thursday nights, they basically learn the firefighter 1 program, and because that's what we do with our probationary members. So we have a very high pass rate when the kids turn 18 and go to the actual class. They're really ahead of the curve.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other members? Alderman Gould?
So you weren't here, and we're going to repeat this to every fire department. You're keeping track of your COVID-19 supplies so that the city can be reimbursing you for the use of, for whatever you've expended. The city will be reimbursing you for those supplies. So keep good track of whatever you're
We have it.
purchasing.
We have it.
How's the morale of the department in light of this pandemic?
Honestly, the morale of the department is pretty good. Everybody has concerns. We're dealing with an invisible enemy. So the guys are doing pretty good. We've taken steps to Taft Fire Department being in, the village that it's in is a very close-knit community. It's kind of hard to, you drive by the firehouse and there's no cars in the car. There was always somebody there tinkering or doing something or whatever. So they're missing that. The guys have been really good. Most of them are keeping in touch with each other, either by phones or on calls. And the same thing with our retired members. The guys have really stepped up and reached out to them. We get guys that go shopping for each other or stuff like that. But the morale is pretty good. Family morale, well, that's a different story.
Can't help you there. Do you have adequate supplies to clean your station and apparatus? And do you have
Now-
adequate PPE?
Now we do. So the PPE, I've done some bartering with other chiefs around the state and made the trips to, in the beginning, we had no N95 masks, so I traded off 20 isolation suits for 20 N95 masks. So, we made the trip halfway across the state to them. I work as a career firefighter somewhere else, so where we were short with face shields before we got some at the last order. My chief at work, we just swapped out 20 for 20 and he gave him a box of small gloves. So it's working fairly well with that. One of the things we did is we saw that, believe it or not, YouTube can be good for something. We always tell the kids you're not part of the YouTube fire department, but an ingenious firefighter somewhere out west came up with a neat way to combat and disinfect the apparatus. Right about the time all of this started, we had been doing everything by hand, using an absorbent amount of sanitary wipes and paper towels and disinfecting. We got together, the gentleman shared his video, and he actually created a sprayer to disinfect the apparatus in ambulances using an old air pack. We took it one step further, and we bought an air compressor, small one, and fitted it up, and now when we come back from a call, we're able to disinfect the apparatus like right away. It takes about 5 minutes versus about an hour.
Okay, and and your department had any exposure to any positive COVID-19 patients?
Right now, the answer is no, that we know of, that we're aware of. Our medical calls have been scaled back as part of a preventative measure. It's a preventative measure that can benefit us in the long run in the event that we suffer a case such as New York City or the other places where the ambulance service becomes inundated and their people are out and we need to step in and fill their shoes. So it's kind of like an A and a B team. But as far as strategic planning, that makes 100% sense. But to say that anybody has been officially notified so far, I would say no.
Okay. And non-COVID related, any issues with your apparatus?
No, everything is doing pretty good. The tower's got to go in and have some work done. We've been waiting for fleet maintenance. Our rescue truck was supposed to be delivered on the 12th, so we could really start scaling back and putting our firehouse back in order. We've got equipment staged everywhere. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 has caused delays for them in Florida. I've already been in contact with Mr. Hathaway, and I think explained to several of the council members that truck's going to be a little late, but because, down there, they're following the CDC guidelines. If you come in with a fever, they send you home, and that's put a crimp in their workforce.
And my last question, are you using NFIRS for emergency reporting?
We have been using NFIRS religiously, whether it was firehouse or emergency reporting, since 1991. I know I did them all. We switched over to emergency reporting a couple of years ago. The worst part about that is we were told that everything we had in firehouse for previous years was supposed to transfer over. So we lost about 18 or 19 years worth of data. But yes, we are absolutely, it is a great program. Usually you can pull up any bit of information with a couple of clicks of the mouse.
Thank you.
Other members? Alderman Nash.
Yeah, I noticed in your capital improvement budget, there's two line items, one for parking lot expansion design, and the other one's for parking lot expansion. So I just have a couple questions. Is that $250,000, is that a actual estimate or quote from somebody?
The $250,000, the original quote that we had received from a gentleman, which is a contractor, was about $650. We've been working with John Paul at the Public Works, the city engineer, and he has lowered it down to about $250. So didn't know which way we were going to go with it, and figured we could either fund the design of it now, which is a smaller cost, so we actually have a hard set of plans. It'll allow us to be able to apply for some different grants, so we can quote-unquote say the project is shovel-ready, in such case we come across something like that. And then plan on doing the parking lot in a year or 2 years down the conversations with Jean Paul, and he seems to think we can get it done for that, but like with anything else, me being me, I would rather turn back money than have it come back and say, well, there's ledge that they have to blast through or something else that's gonna raise the cost of that project. It doesn't make, anybody look very well as far as stuff.
So the 250 is not actually an estimate, it's just a guesstimate
It's
by?
an estimate based on Jean Paul.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, because I know we've had conversations regarding your heating system, was in a situation where you may need to get that replaced. Is that something that is okay right now, or is
Yep,
it something
it's
that you
okay
should be
right now.
putting, okay,
2016, we lost, there's 3 zones for heating. The building
Right.
was originally built in 1970, 69. At that time, they said they would never outgrow it. And 5 years later, they put an addition on. And another 3 years after that, they put an addition on. In 1989, we put an addition on, and we had gotten a grant to put another addition on. So there's 4 different types of heating systems in there. The newest section obviously has the Mitsubishi units, which utilities highly recommended. We went with and dealt with them as far as speccing them out. And they are a phenomenal unit. The other one is 2 rooftop units. That's on the 1989 edition. One of them actually, the heating and air conditioning unit actually fizzled out. And we had to have that replaced. The other one has been doing very well as far as preventative maintenance, and they haven't recommended any changes other than to continue with it. And the main building had the furnace that was put in 1969.
I think that's the one I was talking, you showed me.
Yeah, that one, Old Reliable has not caused us any problems. And if the other heating system goes out, that thing can heat the entire place.
Okay, but that one's okay right now?
That one's so far
Okay, all right, just want to make sure, because I know you had showed me
When,
some stuff and you were concerned.
We had originally talked about possibly looking into it, replacing it. But I think we're going to put it off a little bit because it does work. It hasn't, like I said, we have it preventative maintenance done, so that will prolong the life of it. So until it becomes obsolete, we start running into, more and more maintenance problems. And I've already had conversations with NPU about possibly replacing it and what it would take to do it.
Okay, just want to make sure, thank you.
Yes, Alderman Wilson.
So thank you again for coming. I want to say I'm pleased with the amount of creativity and the strategic prioritization you have within your budget. The only question I really have, and I've asked every chief, is with the proposed amount, do you feel that you will be able to achieve all the goals and objectives for your department this coming year?
As typical with the fire service, we'll make do the best we can. We've always seemed to, the fire service as a whole have always tended to be creative. And as far as getting things done that need to get done, it'll be tight, but we can try and live through it. We understand that times are tough for everybody. The nice thing to know is when the alarm goes off, we're still gonna roll out the door. So we will take care of, it'll be tight, but we'll manage. We run into no problem. Josh and the city manager and even the members of the council have been great for helping us if we run into any shortfalls.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Other members? Thank you, Chief. Good to see you both.
Be safe, Chief.
Be safe, everybody have a good day.
Same to you.
Thanks.
Bro, I know you've never been to Capitol.
Yep.
Once this is over, feel free to stop by.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
The next volunteer fire department is Yantic. The antique is on page 90. The department, we reviewed the budget. There were 2 line items where we did reduce somewhat from the request. We made some projections and took it back to a 4% increase over our previous budget. That's in physicals and professional development. We did make I forgot to really talk about this before. You'll see vehicle fuel, we've adjusted it down in all categories because of the lower price. When the chiefs did the budget, it was before the market really took a dive on fuel. So we're reflecting the lower cost on that. That's all the comments I have. I'll defer to the chief for any comments, and then we can take questions.
Before that, Mayor, may I?
Yeah.
The fuel cost, it's low now, and it's not going to go down much lower. When it does go low, it goes like a cent here, a cent there. But when it goes back up, it's going to go back up by $1. It's not going to do 10 cent, 5 cent. So we're going to be able to fill that void?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't lower it to reflect the actual cost now. We kind of lowered it.
Okay, I'm just concerned. 'cause
Moderately.
When it
but
goes back
still
up, it's
low.
not going
No,
up by a nickel.
no.
It's going up by dollars. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe during these trying times. With that, any questions?
Members? Nash?
I'll just ask, he might have mentioned it a little bit, but I wanted to go back. I noticed that on your physicals, professional development, and your dues, license, and subscriptions, I mean, there's substantial money there. Are you going to be able to operate with that lower sum satisfactory?
Yes, physicals, we adjusted that number through a discussion with finance during the process of putting the budget together. So yeah, we're able to cover our physicals.
In the professional development and subscriptions?
We'll be okay.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
I just want to make sure, that's all. Because it seemed like a big chunk there, so.
Members? Alderman Gould?
Good evening, Chief Blanchard. Thank you for being here. I'll give the same spiel. We're giving all the fire departments now that we've got a clarification. So any COVID-19 related items that you are purchasing for your station, you'll keep track of them with a memo to Josh, and then the city is going to be reimbursing you for any of those expenses. That way we will be keeping your budget whole.
Excellent. We are tracking the purchases and we are tracking the labor hours that we're putting towards the COVID-19 epidemic. So all those will be passed on to finance.
Okay, wonderful. Couple other questions. How's your membership's morale in light of this pandemic?
Morale is good.
Okay, and do you presently have adequate supplies to clean your station apparatus, and do you have adequate PPE?
As far as cleaning supplies, we're going to be good for probably a month to a month and a half of what we have on hand. As far as PPE goes, we're struggling for items that are not expired. As far as surgical masks and stuff like that, we're limited. We've taken advantage of the distributions, 2 of them that have happened at American Ambulance. That is what we have right now for PPE. Stuff we had in hand prior to that, we have used, and we've been creative in-house with different ideas of how we can protect our members if we need to, as far as possibly using an SCBA or something like that. So we're constantly evaluating our PPE, and we're constantly looking for new PPE. We have some PPE on order. Obviously, we're paying a little more now than we have in the past, but that is just the trend.
Okay, and has your department had any exposures to any positive COVID-19 patients that you're aware of?
Yes.
And those members have self-quarantined, or what is your procedure for that?
When we're notified of the potential exposure, we do recommend they take a 2-week, 14-day self-quarantine. Fortunately, in the case here, we had limited exposure. One individual is taking 14 days off, and everyone else is, fine.
Okay. And a couple of non-COVID questions. Any issues with your apparatus or your station?
All the apparatus is on the road. Through the budget process,
process, you'll see our request for replacement over time. We do need to start looking at Squad 36 as a replacement for SB3. Those can't fall off the radar. I'm sure we'll be discussing that through the process with public safety.
And, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, no, go ahead, I'm
As far
sorry.
as the station goes, it's an older building, as you know. I believe everyone's been there. It needs work from time to time. We do have a couple of items that we constantly remind the Public Safety Committee of that we need to have funded. We do have an in-ground oil tank that needs to be removed, and we do need to have a solution designed for that, because we obviously can't put the tank back in the ground. The main parking lot of the station is in pretty bad shape. That should be replaced, repaired, so on and so forth. And an HVAC system for the first floor, the main floor where the apparatus is definitely warranted. There is no cooling that's working right now. We do have wall air conditioners, but the use those get is problematic. We get 2 years out of them at the most. We're lucky.
Okay, and my final question, you're using Empress for emergency reporting?
We are using emergency reporting to its capacity. I would really like to see the bridge be completed between the PD and the software. That would, I think, be a huge asset, not only for dispatch, but for us.
Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Wilson.
So one of the things that I've noticed in your budget, first, I want to say thank you for all that you do and for being here, is in your supplies budget. You know, I look at the projected for this year is 41,500 and proposed around 31,000. Do you see that as being an issue moving forward into the next fiscal year, by any chance?
I do. So firefighting, the job we do is kind of unpredictable. There are times that I notify public safety of equipment that fails, gets broken, outside of what our planned budget, our operational budget. Sometimes maybe a $200 repair, and there have been times on calls that we have ran where there's been tens of thousands of dollars lost or again. So I think this year we're probably at $3,000 total, everything that we weren't able to budget for. Use our operating budget and try to work within the numbers we're given to keep things going. I am concerned though that going forward, we may have still costs related to COVID and, you know, all public safety issues in the city, you know, for next year. None of that is in our budget. You know, I'm thinking we should have something put into our budgets for that, increase of some sort. But that's to be determined.
My only other question I've asked every chief is, with the proposed amount, do you feel that the proposed amount properly fits your department to successfully meet your goals and objectives?
It is a 4% increase from last year. We're going to make it work. We have to. We really don't have any options. So we'll make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Other members? Yeah, Alderman DeLucia.
Just because we asked everybody else, currently, how many members of your department have some sort of state certification?
All members are required to have a state certification firefighter 1 with 2 years of joining. So we have 60 members active.
Yep.
We always factor 1 or 2 of those members being a probationary member. So 97% is the number I use typically for people with state certification. And that's a requirement for us.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, you made several requests in the capital budget. You touched on some of those already that weren't funded. So what kind of time frame, are you under any kind of deep situation with like the oil tank, for instance?
We've been notified that it needs to be removed. There's not a time frame.
There's no consent decree or anything like that?
No, they're going to probably follow up, but I imagine within the next year or two, I'll be getting another letter, and it hasn't been.
Okay. All right, are there any other requirements like that regarding any of your other requests that could apply here, either deep or otherwise?
particulate from the apparatus.
That's not the HVAC, though, that's just,
No, that's not the
that's something
HVAC,
different, yeah.
The HVAC is the air conditioning.
Right.
Portion. It's just the AC. The heat is a steam boiler downstairs that manages the main station now. But we would like to expand that annex building, to have the ability to put the vehicle exhaust system in to manage those particulates. The main station we have now, the existing bays are too narrow. We've had every vendor that does a vehicle exhaust system out to look at it, and they recommended putting media filters on the apparatus. But in consultation with fleet maintenance, that's problematic and expensive. So we're looking at, all options to
Okay,
do that.
thank you.
Other members? Thanks, Chief.
Be safe, Frank.
Thank you, Chief.
The next budget is Norwich Fire and Emergency Management.
Yes?
Nope, nope, can't be allowed. Oh,
John, we take 5 minutes,
Take 5.
or until they come back.
Peter, just want to remind you, I got to leave at 7:30,
I know,
just so you know.
I know.
I have another meeting.
Josh, for the CCD fire budget, where is that?
That is on page,
It's in the back.
page 124.
Yep.
Thank you, Josh. Little sucker was hiding from me.
Hmm. Yeah, structure.
Hey, you gotta go, you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't worry about us.
We'll reschedule you for another.
I used to have a department.
A bathroom fire, is that what they said?
Yeah, probably a fan. Yeah.
You don't know.
Turn the
I
shower on.
still gotta take mine apart.
I had when I was the town manager in Watertown, there was a volunteer fire department there that every time we did the budget, they had a call. And to this day, I think it was,
Done
The setup?
purposefully?
it was a maneuver.
Somebody pulled a fire alarm
Yeah, I
somewhere?
think so.
I
One
have
of
a,
their own.
I have a friend I work with who was on the fire department when you were the city manager in Newington.
We're starting on page 77. Then we'll do the emergency management budget, which is
80,
78. I'm sorry, not 78. It's
80.
80. And then we'll move over to the consolidated district. That's on page 124, I believe. Yes. So that's our batting order. You said, Chief? You said? Okay. As I was explaining, this budget is divided into three different departments or increments. The first is Norwich Fire. This includes the administrative personnel, fire marshal, inspectors, the chief, and the battalion chiefs. The rest of the funds are budgeted in the CCD, and we'll get to that in a moment. I have no more comments, and I'll leave it to the chief. If there are no comments, then we'll take questions.
As you know, I'm all new to this, so I'm probably just going to say that I think I put together a fair budget. Nothing really is overspending, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Members? Alderman Gould.
Chief Wuchek, thank you for being here tonight. I'll give you the same spiel I've given everybody else. You're keeping track of your COVID-19 expenditures?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to make sure that your department is reimbursed for those expenses.
Yep.
How is your membership holding up? How is your morale at the department with this pandemic?
It's good. I mean, I think the concern is with any organization right now that is working, not staying home, is they're afraid that they might bring it home to their families. But we have strict guidelines in place, and if they follow the guidelines, it keeps them safe. So that's pretty much how it is around the station. It's just that fear in the back of your mind bringing it home.
If I may, on that, and I didn't mention it before, but if we do have a quarantine situation, we have an arrangement with the Holiday Inn in Norwich. We've kind of reserved a floor of rooms, and obviously if any firefighter needs to be quarantined 14 days, that's, or they get exposed, but they're not positive, they don't want to go home and have a chance to do that, then we will put them up in the Holiday Inn. Obviously, we got a very good rate since the Holiday Inn is virtually empty at this point, and that is also reimbursable anyway. So, and that would go for the volunteer fire departments as well as the police. Anybody that has exposure and is quarantined, does not want to go home, can go there.
Wonderful. Do you have adequate supplies to clean your station apparatus?
Yeah, pretty much. We've been ordering it and waiting for it to come in. We were low on gloves for a little while, latex gloves, or nitrile gloves, but we ordered them a month ago, so they just came in. So it's trickling slowly, but right now we're pretty much
Okay. And has your department had any exposures to any positive COVID-19 patients?
Yes. 3 that I know of. There might have been a 4th this morning.
So are they now waiting for the patient?
There was a fourth today.
That's quite all right. So your members who have been exposed to a positive patient, what is their status right now?
So they're still, we follow the CDC's guidelines as long as they're protected with their PPE when they went in, which they were. They're allowed to self-monitor at home, If they get a fever or anything, they report it to us, and then they have to quarantine or self-isolate for those 14 days.
Okay,
So right now, they're still working. They're
Okay.
on the line.
Okay.
thank you.
Alderman Nash?
I just have a couple questions, and maybe the city manager can answer it better than, not saying that you can't, I think it's more of a money question. I noticed on the regular employees, you have a $35,000, $34,000 increase, and on the fringe benefits, you have a $100,000 decrease, so what's the,
Yeah, I would have to ask Josh that.
I mean, that's a big difference. I would think if you're going up with employees, fringe benefits go up.
It's not working?
Green.
Yeah, you hit it too many times, I think.
So the difference is that the one-year contract extension wasn't in place when they submitted their budget request, so the salaries for the 2020-21 request were from the contract that expired June 30th, 2019. So when we put the proposed numbers together in the column, that reflected a general wage increase, moving it up one more year.
So
Covers the money.
what about the fringe benefits? That's gone down $100,000.
Yeah, that's, remember, we were discussing the decrease in the other
He
post-employment
wasn't here
benefits.
yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I had to work.
So one of the major things, expenditure factors, was the other post-employment benefits contribution decreased substantially. Fire, especially, you'll see it again in the city consolidation fire district. So it actually was a net decrease in their fringe benefits.
Okay, thank you.
So along the same lines, so that would account essentially for the more or less flat funding of the
Correct.
CCD 5? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then the last question I have is Squad A. Is it still running?
Yes, it's still running.
Is it at 200,000 miles yet, or no?
Close to it.
Yeah, okay.
I think everyone knows that needs replacing pretty soon.
Okay.
It was in the garage for the last 2 weeks, I think, 4 days out of 14. So they usually try to get it back to us on the weekends. Sometimes that doesn't happen. But it's in there quite often. It's in there at least 3 days a month, at least.
Thank you, sir.
The members, yeah, Alderman Wilson.
First, thank you for being here. One question I have, and it probably overlaps to the other emergency management budget, but I see in this budget where the director for training, of course, has been moved from .75 to full. And then I think over on emergency management, it's gotten rid of it over in that budget. Could you explain a little bit as to why it was moved from one to the other?
I think we'd have to ask Josh. It has something to do with the grant, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of basically just accounting for where should this position be accounted for. We ended up just putting all of it into the Norwich Fire budget rather than putting a portion of it into the emergency management budget. That position has emergency management duties, but when we get reimbursement from the emergency management performance grant, the grant's only so big anyway, so it doesn't really benefit us to, shift more salaries into the emergency management budget because it's only a $20,000 grant. So
Perfect.
that's why it's just that position is all funded in this Norwich Fire budget.
I just wanted to get that clarification. And then the other question that I've asked every chief is, knowing the proposed amount, do you feel that you'll be able to properly reach your goals and objectives as a department?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All the members. Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
Well, my question is, are we looking at the Norwich Fire and emergency management at the same time? I mean, we're not breaking the questions up between the two pieces, are we? Meaning I can ask him questions about
Yes.
the Norwich Fire side?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So, So the firefighters that have been exposed to someone who has tested positive, and they're self-monitoring at home because they were following the guidelines in PPE, so they're at home not working.
No, they're working. They come to work as long as they don't show any symptoms.
Thank you. Okay, that was the piece that I did not understand, and the rest of my questions are moot. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up on the CDC's website, there's strict guidance on it.
Yes.
On how to do it. Also, we talk to Uncas Health a lot, ask them their opinion on what we should do with certain scenarios, and they always tell us the same thing: follow the CDC guidelines, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, no doubt that that's a best path. Just for clarification, I was concerned that if, even though they were wearing PPE, we sent them home for 14 days. That's a heck of a lot of overtime.
Right now.
Okay.
Question on decontamination. The firefighters involved in that, was their equipment treated differently? Have you increased your decontamination response when they come back to the building?
Yeah, so the way it works right now, the guideline that we created was they wear their PPE, which is an isolation gown, a mask, glasses, gloves. They doff all that at the scene. It gets into a red bag. When they get back to the station, they take off their station clothes. That gets put in our extractor. And we have showers on the main floor of both stations for bloodborne pathogens, which is separate from the other showers in the stations. They take a shower. We bring them more clothes. So it's a very precise operation that we do to get them, make sure they're not contaminating the rest of the station.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
We're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Do you want to?
Anybody
You going to do emergency management?
Emergency management,
with a question?
there isn't much there.
Yeah.
It's the same as last year.
The, page 80 is emergency management. I don't have any comments on this, other than we've tried to keep the funding fairly level over the last few years.
Chief, is there anything you need to share on the EMS?
No, I don't. I think that the big thing about emergency management, if you don't have any significant incidents,
Right.
the money pretty much stays the same. Something like what's going on right now, we're using a little more than normal, mostly for restocking what we're giving out through emergency management to other agencies. We've given some masks and gowns to the PD and also to the City Hall here. So we're trying to replenish that stock with some funds. But other than that, as you guys know, it stays the same. It doesn't really waver at all unless you have a huge incident.
How about your balance of N95 masks? Are you holding your own?
Yeah, so we had in stock around 200 of them, and they're going down, but not as fast as one would expect with everything that's going on in the country. And I think that has a lot to do with the screening that we're doing at dispatch and American Ambulance Dispatch.
Right.
They're screening the calls very well. A lot of the times, if the person can walk out of the house or the residents, we'll have them walk out and we won't even get within 6 feet of them. So we're able to use those N95s again. So that's what we've been doing. Supposedly, the region is supposed to get a big supply of them. We put in for, through emergency management, we put in for 500 of N95 masks, and then we would distribute them to the volunteer departments also, and whoever else needs it, like the PD or City Hall.
Thank you.
Just waiting for them to come in.
We're good. Right. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Be safe, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. The next budget is the police budget. That starts on page 73.
That's me. I know. Should have been doctor.
Okay, I'll start off. This budget has a settled contract in 2021, so the general wage increase is already included in the regular employees' salaries. This also has a large decrease in the fringe benefit account, and that is reflecting the OPEB savings also. We've been working hard at trying to control replacement costs, and I think you will notice this year, we think we've leveled it out, and the chief has done an excellent job of monitoring the situation, so we're actually budgeting a little lower than we have in the past on that. That's all I have for comments on that. Chief,
Chief?
if you have any?
Since I'm the last speaker of the night and keeping you guys enjoying this beautiful night out, have no opening comments, and you guys jump into questions if you want.
Members?
I just,
Go ahead.
I just have something out of, I guess, somewhat curiosity. So I know we talk about the spending portion of it, but on the revenue side, how much revenue do we realize from like, paid jobs and stuff?
Josh has the revenue side. Some of the things we do make an administrative fee from the private jobs. The road jobs, we get some. Fingerprinting, believe it or not, it's a decent source of revenue, but I just got the news today that that's going to go away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, state's trying something different to expedite the pistol permitting, so they're going to be centers across. You'll authorize it and go to this.
They can do electronic?
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, no more rolls?
No, which is terrible for us because I'm not touching my face.
Haven't done it, it's a pain in the neck. So.
Yeah, it's terrible, and we get a lot of rejection from
Right.
the state, and you as a gun owner, we take rejection after rejection. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 times people have to come back. To
Right. Now, we've had it, for background checks and stuff like that too, and
Really?
even my old job, we used to do intake, obviously, and it can be problematic.
We were going to buy our own electronic desktop model,
Yeah.
but now the state came out and said, no, they're going to get the business of doing that. So which was a decent source of revenue for us for fingerprints, because not only would we fingerprint North residents, we'll also do out-of-town residents at a higher rate.
What are they gonna do with intakes?
You gotta, I don't know how the state, the corrections are gonna do it, but we'll still, for prisoners, we'll still do that. So this is for permits, job employment, background checks,
Okay.
all the non-criminal aspects that we do and we charge for. It's been a nice little revenue source. Josh should have the numbers, but I bet, I wouldn't surprise me if it's $8,000, $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere 3,000 to 6,000.
It's money, but that's.
What about the other jobs?
Private duty, budgeted 196,800 for this year.
And that's included in the expenditures also, right? That's
So this is
reflected-
this would be the net revenue from it.
Net
So-
revenue, okay. Excellent, thank you. She actually make money sometimes.
Alderman Nash?
Thank you, Chief, for being here. And you know where my loyalties and love lie, all right, with the Norwich Police Department from the beginning to the end. Quick question. I'm going to be a jerk here and ask about the cruisers. You're looking for 7. How many of you are over the 100,000 warranty mileage that you got to replace?
There's approximately 3, I think, right now. Captain Day keeps a chart, and for plug safety, I always update you constantly on it. And he trends the cars. He's gotten very innovative over the last pretty much 3 years since I've signed the project. Charting cars and finding ways to restrict miles, take cars off of beats, Alderman DeLucia himself, and we used to have assigned cars. He's kind of swapping that around so mileage doesn't get up too high, so they move forward. he's gotten so good with his system that, John Raymond, the fleet maintenance, superintendent, has even embraced. So the number of seven comes from his projection of what it needs to be. My worry moving forward, that cars right now, they'll deliver to you for 0% financing. This time next year, I don't think you're going to be able to find a car. So you may have to, the cars we get in this budget, you may have to, when we get them, have to keep them for a while.
Now, are these SUVs or these actual?
They're all SUVs.
They're all SUVs,
They're
okay.
on the way.
That's fine.
Well, that's, you guys, the full consent, you always have to, full transparency, you have to know. Ford has remade the SUVs, and they've done away with the Tauruses. When they remade the Explorer chassis, it looks like the old car, but it's not. It's a completely different vehicle. So all our cages and all that stuff have to be purchased new. So that's some of the fee in there is what it's going to cost to buy all new stuff, which is a problem because we have perfectly good equipment that we could have lasted probably 20, 25 years that we maybe got 8 years out of.
So all seven will be SUVs?
All seven of them.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Wilson.
So I have several questions. How many total sworn officers do you have right now?
Right now, we just had an officer leave for a lateral, so we are at 87 sworn.
Okay. And are you anticipating any retirements over the next?
Yes, we are. We're anticipating 3 retirements. I have 3 lieutenants who are going to leave. 2 of them are going to have significant sick time payouts, and that's something that we don't budget for, but it comes out of my account. And those of you who've been to my budget presentations in the past, I'm going to harp on it again. That creates a built-in hole. And I'll recommend citywide, and what's tough is we all have the virus for it. You should almost think about funding some type of retirement fund, even if it's 25% level. That when people, because once you know a guy hits 20 or 25 years, the days are numbered. So if we say the city's exposure is $100,000, even if you had 25,000 in this fund, it's a little bit less. Some of these, the sick time and vacation payouts can be $20,000 to $30,000, and that comes out of the budget. So that means I have to leave that job open, which means it hits the replacement cost, so we have to get really creative. Right now, how we've done it to try to manage the cost for this year is we left the community policing open, and that's become a judgment game. And we try to have the officers, the 308 officers assigned to it, go to all the neighborhoods, but that's putting a workload on. That should be 5 and a supervisor right now, and it's 3 full-time officers and a sergeant split between patrol and community policing, trying to save money. So that's my message about that. Retirements, it's going to be we're going to have a tough year. We're going to lose 2 more lieutenants. So it's good to have movement and everyone can go, but there's a learning curve involved, and we have to pay off. We have to take.
So my next question would be is in this proposed budget, we have the switch to a regional animal service and the elimination of the animal control officer. Are you okay with that change?
Yes, I would have recommended it if I didn't think it was good for the city. You're getting more coverage hours than what we offer right now. You're getting after hours call-in available. They have staff on call 24 hours a day.
Okay.
As Alderman DeLucia Nash, at 4 in the morning, there's a roaming dog. Who gets it? The Franklin Square guy. It's an officer. Now we have an ability to call in an outside this NECOG and then come and get it and take it to the pound, which is located in town. Staffing, if we have injuries or comp or someone's sick, they have a bigger workforce, so they have more officers to pull from, so we can have the proper staff all the time. So I think it's a win-win for the city. We're saving money, and I'm all about saving money. I live in this town, and I think the town will get a better service out of it.
Okay, so my follow-up question, and I mean, either the city manager or you can answer it, is, of course, the pound, of course, we still will maintain and all of those things, so that there will be a maintenance cost, of course, for that still?
No.
We're still negotiating the services agreement and lease agreement with NECOG, but the intent would be to transfer a lot of that responsibility over to NECOG.
Okay.
Some kind of prorated?
I mean, they would have essentially, full use of the building, so it would be mostly on them to maintain it.
Yeah, we anticipate that the cost, the former cost of maintaining the building will be transferred to the new agency.
Okay.
We would probably share in like large, you know, if a roof had to be replaced or something like that, but for, you know, smaller day-to-day operations.
Okay, and that would help drive that larger savings that you talked about in your budget presentation?
Yes, that's part of it, yes.
Okay, so my follow-up question is where would the other savings be coming from?
Well, there's savings in the two, eliminating the two positions,
Okay.
which is about $100,000 between the two positions, you know, plus the
difference.
maintenance on the vehicles, fuel, all those things.
Okay.
Fringe benefits adds up to substantial savings. You will note that there's a new bottom line item
Yep.
in the budget. It's called Regional Animal Services, so it's
Yep.
just one line item. now.
Correct. Thank you for that. My last question is last budget cycle, how many cruisers did we replace?
I believe it was 5.
It was 3 to 5.
I know for the last, I believe, definitely for the last 3 years, we've had a request for cruisers cut.
Okay.
So that's kind of built up the number.
Yeah.
Kick the can down the road, kick the can down the road, and now the can's getting too close to the edge of the cliff.
So kind of while he looks for that, now were many of those replacements then also SUVs, or were those actual cars?
Those were a mix of strictly mileage based.
Okay.
Some of them, believe it or not, we still had some Crown Victorias in the fleet, the old
Okay. Yep.
cars, you know, but unfortunately we held on to them so long. Some of the training values are pennies. You know,
Okay.
We got cars are traded in for $500.
Mhm.
There's probably $2,000 worth of scrap in them.
Mhm.
That's what we got for trade-ins. If we can get onto this program that Captain Vegas developed, it's
Mhm.
going to get the cars so we get full use out of the warranty. 100,000 miles, I was going to ask what the mileage thing is.
Mhm.
100,000 miles, Ford offers a bumper-to-bumper warranty, which we get drivetrain, and we get the extended warranty for 100,000 miles. So if you blow the transmission, blow the motor, you take it to a Ford dealership and they fix it for free. Now the garage has a perfect ability. They can fix anything. They're certified mechanics. They're great mechanics. They don't have man-hours though. They count their jobs in minutes.
Mhm.
It's really like orchestrated ballet to see how they manage their minutes of the day. Something they train in the water pump, I believe is like a 15-hour job. Because in the car construction, you have to take the motor out, take the water pump, take 4 bolts off the water pump, and then put the whole motor back in. They don't have 16 hours to do it. So we try to like to keep the cars to 100,000. You know, 100,001 miles, the water pump
It's
job
5
is
cars.
0%. So we lost the motor at like 94,000 once. So that warranty has paid off tenfold in man hours. Forget the dollars. Dollars, again, I'm all about the dollars, but man hours. I mean, every fire officer's been in here tonight telling about their maintenance goals of their vehicle. We're trying to keep the load off the garage because it's a finite resource. So the extended warranties have worked out well. Kudos to John Raymond to really pushing that. Like I said, we try to get every mile out of the car. We don't want to trade a car in that's under the 100,000. If we have to, because for whatever reason, we want to get more for the cars. So we're getting, instead of getting $500, maybe we're getting $6,000 or $7,000, $10,000 for the car.
Okay, and it just, you know, just was for kind of like that full disclosure piece of people understanding the rationale and how you're doing things. So I definitely appreciate that explanation. And then the last question I really have is, with the proposed budget, do you feel it meets the goals and objectives that your department has put forward?
I am concerned about the replacement account. You know, I did a lot of cost control measures this year, but there's consequences. You know, we've been using community policing to kind of offset, to kind of get things under control.
Mhm.
So I'm worried that if we continue to do that, we can affect the quality of life in our beautiful downtown Capitol neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And with the replacement cuts, you know, I think oil in Volusia or Vernon last year went up, you know, is this a responsible budget, I think is the term we use. I'd be concerned, I think the replacement account is low, to be honest with you. The number I submitted in my request was
Yep.
for the entire exposure of, if everyone took a day off and then the job would fill,
Mhm.
that we would fill. I take the day off to fill my job.
Yep.
But the guy driving the center cruiser takes that day off, they have to fill the job. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm all about fiscally saving. We've done a really good job controlling the overtime account. We're going to continue to do that. For someone to stay late or to get a detective response, and it's a procedure that we've instituted, and it's really worked to bring down the cost. But I do worry about the replacement account.
All right, thank you so much again.
Did we get an answer on the?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry? Did we get an answer on the cruises?
Yeah, 5 last year.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
He asked for 6 or 7.
It was 7, you asked for 7.
How many cruises do we have in service?
In service, we have 25.
Okay.
And at any given day, there are probably 3 to 4 that are down for various reasons. The good thing about the Ford warranty is it's great. By the time we've got to drive it to the garage, and then it sits there sometimes. So there's usually 20 operational, but there's another 5 that are in some way or another. From unfortunately car accidents, we get in accidents.
Hey, regarding your replacement costs issue, so I'll note that in last year, you're $100,000 over right now projected in that line item for this current year, whether we'll hit that mark.
Well, one thing to consider with replacement cost is that a lot of it is a trade-off with regular salaries. So
Right.
if you have 1, 2, 3 people who retired at various times of the year, that drives up replacement costs, but also while that position's vacant, you're not spending as much on salaries. So it's, they don't zig and zag completely in sync, but that's
Well, because you
a
start, we're
portion of
talking
it.
about overtime and, time and a half and stuff.
Right.
And my only caution, the only caveat to that is, we still have the payouts we have to deal with.
Yeah.
That comes from the employee account.
You don't have an estimate of that, do you?
Off the top of my head, I'll just say, 2 of them at, say, 30,000, there's 60,000, and say one maybe at 10, so maybe 70,000 in payouts. So that's something that we have to kind of offset. Those are real dollars, so that's my concern. If we didn't have the payouts, Josh is 100% right. I've been able to, in the past, if you recall, I left the deputy chief's position open for an extended period last year. That was because his payout was a substantial sum, and we were already in danger of being over. And Alderwoman last 2 years ago took me to task for it, and I took it to heart. And we were grossly over budget a couple of years ago.
Right.
And that's why I'm trying to be upfront with the cost as much as possible, so we don't have to deal with that and make the department or agency look bad.
Okay, I mean, obviously, some money comes from other line items, but, or might change your, as Josh says, but certainly, I think if those things come to pass, and we wind up with an appropriation down the road, that's understandable.
Regrettable.
I know regrettable, but,
It's-
I mean, it could happen, so.
If I may, I've always been concerned about the payout. In previous managerial positions, we had a reserve fund separate from the police department, and we funded it each year, not unlike OPEB in some ways. We just haven't been able to initiate it because, we keep on kind of cutting this year, and it needs some seed money in that. That's the most straightforward way to do it. And Josh is shaking his head, yes, but the problem is to initiate it and that type of thing. But ultimately, that's kind of like an OPEB liability in a way, and it's kind of unfair to put that towards the department because they have a turnover. It's a difficult thing. So we'd like to move in that direction, but you have to add money the first year to kind of lead the target, and that's the problem. Maybe we could fund it partially this year and ultimately get on that track.
If you were gonna put that on a line item, where would you put it?
Probably fringe benefits. And the other part of this equation is that in many of the contracts.
Now, you wouldn't consider that salary? Is it,
Well, I think a salary is like something you're getting paid this year for something you did this year, and fringe benefits is, not as much. It's kind of a, you get this at retirement sort of benefit.
for your payout for whatever you owed for time and stuff?
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
But the other part of this equation is negotiating lower payouts upon retirement, and we've done that. We may not see that for a few years because it's, it might be for employees who are hired after 2013 or something, so, but that's in several of the contracts that have been negotiated.
Thanks for reminding me of that. Yes. We are limiting our liability a little bit on that.
So it'll reduce over time then? That liability will reduce over time?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Alderman Zalusha.
Thank you. Chief, one more question about the cruisers, because you mentioned where we had one that was still on warranty at 94,000 miles, and we got a free, the engine blew, and we got it fixed for free, right? But let's stay off, that's an outlier, I would imagine, right? But let's say we blow an engine in a cruiser at 75,000 miles. So now, at 75,000 miles, it's got a brand-new engine in it. How many miles will we keep that car?
We'll keep that probably up to when it gets around the 90,000 range. And then when we go to trade it in, we'll say, we're trading in your car with an engine, almost like new engine. So we'll make sure when that car is assessed, that we get a better rate for it. Because you want to keep the engine as long as you can, but you also want to get a better trading value, because that car is having like a new engine. But the transmission, the driveline, and the electronics, all that stuff are still at the 100,000 mile mark. So there's no benefit to keep that just for one component, because I can guarantee you the luck that we have. The transformation.
Right, at 100,001 miles.
And then we're popping motors out, and that would be on the garages back in a couple minutes. Again, public safety, I talked to Captain Vega, it's dizzying how he tracks cars. Something simple as, if someone's MDT is on the switch that to another car, because you also want to have the computer in the car, and that will save 10,000 miles a year. So we're doing little tricks like that to, Council's been great the last couple of years with the MDTs, the rifle racks in the cars, and you guys all deserve a world of credit, kind of getting where the officers are. The cars are in really good shape. Light bars, you see now all the cars have the new wheel light bars on them, and a much better siren. So they're also having more pride in the vehicle, it kind of helps their morale a little bit. When they come into a locker room, that's nice. They come into a car, that's nice. Everything works. We're literally in the home stretch for the radio system. For those of you who haven't been up to Orchard Street, I'd highly recommend taking a ride up on Orchard Street. There's a brand new antenna up there, and I have a modern shelf. We're not on utility poles and a concrete cinder block building. You won't recognize it, but so we're getting there. And I just want to continue that. I don't want to fall back. I'm really worried about getting cars for next year. That's why I kind of think we should stick with the 7, because I don't know how bad it's going to get. Because these shutdowns that Ford is going through from the virus, that's going to affect things way downstream.
My only other question, as I saw in your capital budget, renovating the prisoner cells.
Yes.
I know that we talked about that before, but forgive me, I couldn't find any notes. Could you just give us a brief description on what needs to happen there?
The cell block we have now, and for those who aren't familiar with it, I think everyone's been there. Most of you are there from the city.
Yep.
All right, everyone's well versed in it. I forgot how many hours on the police station committee. What we're going to do is take the Norwood cells, which is like from the 1970s, steel bars, slab bench, and take them into the 2000s. It'll have the plexiglass windows. We're going to take the doors off. We're going to get a run-of-the-mill slab, put in a concrete block, because the prisoners tend to jump up and down the slab beds. Believe it or not, it happened so far. It's happened twice. We've actually broke the bed after so many years of doing it. So that'll be, so the plumbing fixture will be new. The door mechanism will be new, no more bars. Obviously, the bars are a real suicide risk. So there will be savings and potential litigation down the road, and it should go a long way in helping prevent our jail suicides. We only have one successful, but one's too many. And so that'll upgrade the doors, the bench, so the prisoners can go under there or secrete, we might insert under there. And it's long overdue. The company out of Massachusetts that does a lot of stuff that we have and given us an awesome price, to be honest with you. Like, he came in with his quote, I was ecstatic. Because an architect was telling me from the police station, Mr. Hughes, he said budget $100,000 to sell, and we're doing 8 for $168,000, so
It's amazing.
that's a good price. You know, it's too good to pass up.
Chief, the bond commission's voting tomorrow. There's a sum of funds there, the $146,000. Could you let the other members know what's going on?
That is, remember many months ago, I approached the city council at the end of, probably about a year ago, about body cameras.
Mm-hmm.
State grant program, which was originally 100%, went to 75, and then it was down to 50, it was going away, it would not be refunded. Since the state money was going away, the state adopted a model policy that you had to do, and we needed the equipment, so the timing was right. We didn't want to take it on a project too early, too big, while we're doing other things, so we jumped on the body cameras. So what we did is the body cameras, the state grant paid for 50%. I had another grant, another federal grant for $35,000, and then I kicked in asset forfeiture to make up the difference. So it ended up that I think the city was paying about 30 cents on the dollar between the state grant and other funding sources that we come up with. That will pay its return in tenfold in litigation and lawsuits against the city for use of force issues or traffic accidents. It's amazing. You know, I'll tell everybody, I wish I had a venue to show it. What those were captured. We've been live since January. The great work the officers, male and female officers of North Police Department on a daily basis. Disarming people with knives, going to hostile situations, sustaining violent assaults, and still being able to take the person into custody. You know, it's just good. Today we had a report come in. You'll see the paper tomorrow of a person with a gun, taffel, Officer Rosedale passes the car, pulls around, stops it, and do a felony stop on Orange Ave near the A&P, and take a stolen handgun off one of the perpetrators. So, you know, and then we have that all on film. So we can't say, hey, this was planted, this was that. It's all there. You can see the officers. The car has cameras, the camera in the back, so that as they're coming into the station, you can monitor their conditions. So that's been a really good program. And tomorrow they want to get paid back. There's a reimbursement grant, so the city had to put the money up.
Right.
And if you, the mayor would recall, we had to borrow that money from the fire truck bond.
Right.
Now we'll be able to pay it back. From what the OPM grant administrator says, it's about a 20 to 30 day turnaround for the money to actually show up with Josh, but I don't know, that was pre-corona. I know they are working. I get email updates from her, but I don't know if that's going to affect the turnaround. But it's coming.
What about your men's and women's exposure to COVID-19 on their calls?
It's a great fear of mine. You know, my hope is, you know, they all come out safe. We've done everything we can. We still have a job to do. We still have to interact with the public. We've gone online reporting. We've done a lot with telephone screening. We're working well with Lucas Health to keep a database of, you know, potential locations we have to worry about. We've gotten some PPE in. We could use more. I think tomorrow we're going to start rolling out masks. That seems to be, you know, after the CDC guidelines about wearing masks, much like you are tonight, we'll be doing that. We're wearing the paper masks and taking the N95 mask for the more high-risk situations we go into. But that's not to say that, you know, a fight breaks out in the street and the officer's probably just going to jump out of his car like he has, or he or she has done the last 1,000 times, jump right into it. So that's a concern of mine. I'm going to come out of here with a few extra gray hairs before this virus leaves us. So I'm very, very worried about our safety. And certain risk, and they take the job, and, you know, most of the men and women are very, very good with that. But when you risk your family or your in-laws, I have an officer who cares for an elderly father who changes his wound dressings every day. You know, he's living at somebody else's house right now because we're all very, very concerned about bringing that disease home and affecting our loved ones.
Do your members have face shields that are much more structured than the ones we see the EMS persons wear?
No, when we went, most of the police departments, when we started researching this, probably about 3 weeks ago now, we went right into safety glasses. Because I wanted something that could take an impact, and I was worried about the face shields getting broken. And so we went to safety glasses, full wrapped on safety glasses.
Okay.
And the mask. You know, what we need, something like you like this, Richard Cooper's and Mark tapped on his experience, the extraction shields you guys used to have there.
There you go, yeah.
You know, every now and then we had a call a couple years ago, you get a prisoner who doesn't want to leave the cell, we have to call corrections, and they're great. You send the team from Corrigan up.
5-man crew and a camera person.
And a camera person. It's something to see because they're there to, getting somebody out of a cell who doesn't want to come is a very dangerous operation, and it's highly, highly, high liability to the city. And corrections, God bless them, they're a phone call away, they come up with their team, they film it, they give us a record of the entire thing, they extract the guy. But they have full face shields, they can take blows on.
Shields, all that.
Yeah.
What you see with that, those medical masks, I'm worried that someone's gonna get punched through.
Oh, sure.
Split, cut their face or knock their mask off, or just the easiest point to grab. So we want the safety glasses, the wrap-on safety glasses.
Okay,
All in that fair Home Depot.
all right.
It is a real concern, and obviously, we have nowhere like New York City, but New York City has about 36,000 patrol with different ranks, and about 6,000 are out now, that many. It's
a major concern. I mean, we're worried. We do have fallback plans to curtail our services as if, I'm going to say as, and this would be if we get ill, we have plans on how we'll fall back on our services. Unfortunately, it's not like the old days. If, you know, something happens here, I can call Willimantic, Rockland Ledger, or Waterford, or True. I think we'll all be affected, but that's our fear, so we're trying to keep our workforce as healthy as possible. We really limit access to the building, keep them out there. The officers start cleaning their cars with Clorox wipes at the beginning of the shift. And then in the shifts, they have gloves that they change on and off in the field, hand sanitizer bottles. We're doing everything we can, but we're trying to keep them away from each other as much as possible, which is tough because you've been in those environments and delusion. People, the officers want to talk, hey, just have a call. Everyone wants to get together and talk about, hey, what happened, we did great or not. And no, I fear, to be honest with you, my fear is we're more likely to give it to each other
Right.
than get it or give it to the public. Once someone gets it, we're worried about it.
I mean, you are in a little bit different situation than other, than fire departments and EMS. So, I mean, they've changed their protocols, obviously, so they're only sending firemen to these calls if absolutely necessary. So in your case, you're responding, you really don't really have an idea what you're
No,
going.
we don't, but we do ask questions. If something sounds like a person not acting right, ultimately, a person acting violently, strange, it's not a symptom, but we'll ask the questions. I think it's sick lately, do you have
Right.
anything, any diseases? So we're trying to do that at the phone, the dispatch level, as much as we can. And then, the online reporting, which we took, quite a lot of accidents, property larcenies, small larcenies. There's probably 6 or 7 categories we've created. We're trying to phone people into the online thing. And that's killing us. As an agency, we're protecting the greater good, so the officers are available for the gun call like we had today. But we're all here. We signed up to do the job. And, if someone has to go online, it kind of gives us a weird feeling. It's not what we're here for. We're supposed to go off and take the time and investigate it. And every case gets assigned to an officer. It's not like the person who fills it in. That case gets assigned to an officer who then will interview the subject over the telephone and further investigation required to do it. But
Obviously, it's a strange time, and for my old profession, and even my new, it's kind of tough to deal with, so,
I'm very worried about the prisons, to be honest with you. Once the communicable disease gets in, if it was.
And I think there's a great chance of loss of control in those scenarios too,
Yeah,
so,
and
but that's not for here. Well, we could talk about that all day.
That'll affect what we have to, because our domestics are up right now.
Yeah. No, but I appreciate the fact that, you're dealing with unknowns most of the time, and that's what's really the toughest thing to
So I
deal
think,
with.
tomorrow we're gonna roll it out, that we're gonna go to mass, so that's gonna get our surgical mask use up. Right now, we have about 600. Worst case, we use 30 masks a day, so we're gonna have to start looking for masks. We have some on order. But that's worst case, calls are down. Most people, social distancing is working. Our calls for service are down. The ones we go to are ones we should be going to. But we'll let you know if there's a problem.
Okay.
So far, we're good. And again, follow the Facebook page, the community, and we should all be proud to be from Norwich. They've been great. Walmart, Stop and Shop, ShopRite, Dollar General, private citizens just donating, making hand sanitizer for us, donating hand sanitizer for us, telling us, putting aside deliveries so we can get the wipes and keep the office cars clean. And so we should, as a community, when we're done, we should give ourselves a pat on the back for that, because the community has stepped up large. If we haven't said that enough, then I'll make sure we get that out there. But people have been very, very.
Good idea.
Yeah, we've noticed that in general. When we closed the city hall down, unless you had an appointment, I was worried that we'd have a lot of throwback on that, and the citizens really, they get it. They really do. And we had none of the problems that I thought we would have.
No, and again, we had an officer down at the door tonight, but it seems like most people are still getting it, which is good.
Yeah, I think they
But
do.
thank you, Chief. Personally, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's what we're here for. We want to be good, but.
Well, good, I guess.
Yeah, that concludes this evening. Happy Passover, happy Easter. It reminds me of almost like it is like a wartime setting when you can't be with your family and things like that. It almost reminds me of some of the stories my father, and would tell me about World War II when my father was in Europe and Christmas and whatever. And it's not quite that dramatic, but it kind of has that feel for it a little bit about being separated and stuff. And it's difficult. I know we all share that, but try to have a good holiday anyway.